Hare Krishna, Namaste.
Chapter 13 is entitled as Kshetrajna Yoga, also as Prakriti Purusha Vibhaga Yoga, also as Prakriti Purusha Viveka Yoga. Sloka 5. ṛṣibhir bahudhā gītaṁ, chandobhir vividhaiḥ pṛthak, brahma-sūtra-padaiś caiva, hetumadbhir viniścitaiḥ. ṛṣibhir, by the wise sages like Parasara, Vyasa, Valmiki and others. Bahudhā, in many ways. Gītaṁ has been described. Pṛthak vividhaiḥ, dealing with various distinctive aspects. The Kshetra and Kshetrajna, chandobhir, by Vedic hymns. Viniścitaiḥ, certain. Hetumadbhir, well-reasoned. Brahma-sūtra-padaiś caiva, words which are indeed aphorisms meant to elucidate Brahman. Translation: that knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedānta-sūtra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. For any living entity wanting to get liberated from this world, from the samsara, the three topics, Jivatma, Paramatma, Prakriti, must be clearly understood. Their differences, their nature and attributes are very important subject matter. For the Jivatma to cultivate bhakti and to attain the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, the Jivatma must understand and realize the difference between himself and the deha, the body, and himself, that is Jivatma, and Paramatma differences. If this viveka, this understanding is not present, then one will not be able to perform bhakti. If bhakti is not performed, one cannot attain the spiritual world. Let's see this one. If one doesn't understand there is Atma and body, then obviously they are going to understand Aikya Jnana, that is, Atma and body are one. And if one doesn't understand there is Atma and Paramatma, and again the Aikya Jnana, that is, there is one Atma, Atma and Paramatma are one and the same, then again there is a misunderstanding. Thinking oneself to be the body, thinking oneself to be Paramatma, that's not going to lead one into moksha. Therefore, this chapter has greatly dealt with these differences, how they differ, what they are, what's their nature, what are their attributes, what are their purposes, and what are the benefits, and so forth. And that is what Krishna is going to explain starting from the 6th sloka. But before he starts elaborating on those items, Krishna is saying here in this sloka that these are not his own idea, these are all clearly stated by the great rishis. These things are mentioned in Vedas, Upanishad, Brahma-sūtra. Therefore, these are very valid. It has been very clearly outlined the distinct differences between Jivatma, Prakriti and Paramatma. Let's learn some references by them. ṛṣibhir bahudhā gītaṁ. Rishis, the great saints like Parasara, Vyasa, Valmiki and many have spoken about these differences. In Vishnu Purana, Parasara Maharishi brings up this topic of Kshetra, Kshetrajna in a very nice story format. There was a king by name Rahuna who was on his way to receive Jnanopadesha, the spiritual instructions, from another sage called Raikva. As he was traveling in a palanquin, there was a need for an additional person to carry the palanquin. The king's men found Jadabharata, who was also wandering on the forest, asked him to come and hold the palanquin. But the king did not have a smooth ride. There were lots of ups and downs. So therefore he got off from his palanquin and then found that it was Jadabharata who was cause of this uneasy journey. So he got really very upset and angry on Jadabharata and asked him sarcastically, "You seem to be very well built. You don't have problem for food. You must have been eating well. You must have taken good rest, sleep. Therefore, what is the problem for you to carry the palanquin and walk properly?" This story is there in Vishnu Purana, also in Srimad Bhagavatam with more detail, but we are just mentioning the story in a nutshell to get to our point. When Jadabharata heard this one, his response to the king was, "I never lifted you." When the king heard this one, he was taken back. All this while, it was Jadabharata, who was carrying along with the other servants. The king asked, "If you were not lifting, who was lifting then?" "Well, you've been lifted, carried by the palanquin." The palanquin was carried by the shoulder, and the shoulder is carried by the hip. The hip is carried by thigh, and the thigh carried by the foot, and the foot carried by the ground. Therefore, I never carried you. If you have any questions, please talk to the earth, as I was not the one who carried you. And you said, "I am fat," but I am not fat. I am not thin either, because Atma is neither fat nor thin. And you said, "I must have eaten." Well, but I never ate anything, because Atma doesn't need water for quenching the thirst, because there is no thirst for Atma. Doesn't need a food, because Atma doesn't get hungry at any time. Therefore, I never ate. When the king heard these things, he came to his senses. Immediately he could understand that this can't be an ordinary person. Before we get into what the king asks next, let's see the sloka that spoken by Jadabharata. He said, Aham tvam cha tatanya cha bhuter ukhyama parthiva. I, you, all these soldiers are carried by bhuter, the panchabhuta. That is the body which is made of 5 elements: earth, fire, water, air and ether. Every one of us are made of these 5 elements. Therefore, dear king, whatever you mention, that you are fat, you are tall, you are short, you are carrying, none of these things really apply to me. You've been talking everything about the body, deha, and I'm not the body anyway, so I'm not sure what are you talking and to whom you are talking. Then he continues, Gunapravaha patito bhuta vargopi yatyayam karmas vasya gunahi yete satvadhya prithivipate. It is simply because of the 3 modes of material nature which drives the living entity because of its own karma vasya, because they are helplessly driven by their karma. Then he continues, Avidya sachitam karma tachaseshu jantusu. It is the ignorance which binds this person, considering oneself to be the deha, this body. This is all because of their previous karma. Atma shuddho sharaha shanto nirgunaha prakritihi paraha. There is Shuddha Atma, there is also Ashuddha Atma. This is just to differentiate a conditioned soul and the liberated soul. Otherwise, Atma is never contaminated. Therefore, here, Atma Shuddho, Aksharaha, Shantaha, Nirgunaha. So these are the qualities of Atma in its original state has been mentioned. Atma is pure, never goes through any changes. It is in peace all the time. It is not affected by the 3 modes of material nature. It is beyond the Prakriti when it is in its liberated state. If it is not, then Atma is Ashuddho, is contaminated because of its association with the Deha, body. And because of the association of the body, it goes through the changes. The changes are not to the Atma, but to the body, because it identified itself with the body. It is as good as Atma is going through changes. And it is of distressed mode most of the time, Ashantihi, and fully influenced by the 3 modes, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And it is entangled within this Prakriti. So completely different from the Muktatma. A liberated Atma is pure, whereas the conditioned Atma is impure. The liberated Atma doesn't go through any changes. The conditioned Atma goes through the changes. The liberated Atma is in Shanta, peace all the time, whereas the conditioned Atma is Ashantihi, always distressed, not peaceful. The liberated Atma is Nirgunaihi, is not affected by the 3 gunas, whereas a conditioned Atma always affected by the 3 gunas. The liberated Atma is beyond this Prakriti, whereas the conditioned Atma is within this Prakriti, the material world, the samsara. Pravritti apachayo nasya Chaikasyaikila jandasu. No one can ever escape the karma. So here, Parasara Rishi, who wrote Vishnu Purana, has given such a difficult subject matter in a very lucid, easy format for us to understand the difference between body and Atma. And the dialogue continues. Pindaha pṛthak yataha pumsaha shiraha pani adi lakshanaha tatoham iti kutraitam samnyam rajan karomyaham. This body, which has different parts, head, shoulder, hands, stomach, leg, and various parts. Whom are you referring to? Are you referring to my head? Are you referring to my leg? Are you referring to my stomach? Are you referring to my body? And none of these are me, I. I am not my head. I am not my shoulder. I am not my hand. I am not my stomach. I am not my leg. I am not this body. Whom are you talking to? Therefore, my dear king, you are an intelligent person. Just think, have you ever called yourself as head? I am head. I am mouth. I am hand. I am heart. I am brain. You never said any of these things. You never even said I am the body. So, these are different parts of the body. This is the body, which is totally different. That I is different from the body. Contemplate on this one. You will understand whatever you spoke so far absolutely makes no sense. When the king Rahuguna heard this beautiful message from Jadabharata, he immediately fell at the feet of Jadabharata and he inquired, "Who are you? Where are you coming from? Why are you here in this forest?" And Jadabharata smiled and said, "Whoever you are, I am the same. Wherever you came from, I came from the same place. Whatever you are doing here, I am doing the same here." The king again got confused, as he was not getting direct answer for his three questions. He requested Jadabharata to explain it. Jadabharata said, "You are individual Atma, I am an individual Atma. Therefore, whoever you are, I am the same. Your next question, where I came from? Wherever you came, I came from the same place. You came from a mother's womb, Matra Garbha. I also came from a mother's womb. And your last question, what am I doing here? I am doing the same thing, whatever you are doing. You are here doing things to finish your karma. I am here also to finish my karma. The only difference is you are sitting on a palanquin and trying to get rid of your karmas. I am walking on this forest carrying you to get rid of my karma. That's the only difference. Therefore, my dear king, understand Kshetra, Kshetrajna. Kshetra is a field of activity which is nothing but the body. Kshetrajna is the one who understands the field of activity and himself aloof from the field. That Kshetrajna is the Jivatma. Also, by Vedavyasa in Mahabharata, he mentions Indriyani mano buddhihi sattvam tejo balam dhritihi. Vasudevatmakani ahuhu kshetram kshetrajnam evacha. That is, the sense organs, various sense organs, the mind, the intellect, the power, firmness, as well as the body as whole and the individual souls. The first thing is the body, which has the senses, mind, intelligence, etc., and the Atma. All of them have Vasudeva, Sri Krishna, as their Paramatma, inner soul. Vasudevatmakani means that all of them, including the Prakriti, which is made of 24 elements, and the Jivatma, are part and parcel of Vasudeva, Sri Krishna. From this, the three Tattvas, Jivatma, Prakriti and Paramatma, has been explained. Today, we just saw a couple of references by the great rishis like Parasara and Vyasa about the Jivatma, Deha and Paramatma. In our next session, we'll move on to next references from Upanishad and Brahma-sūtra.
Namaste. Hare Krishna.